Tre'vell Anderson is an award-winning journalist, social curator, and world changer who always comes to slay, and they are joining us this morning with their latest work, We See Each Other. Good morning. Thanks so much for being with us here on Hometown Living.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to first dive in about how this work is compiled. History, but also some of your own experience. What do you hope the reader will take away from the compilation of this work?
Yeah, I think my main goal with all of this is I want people to remember that trans people, Black trans people especially, we've always been here. We've always been, in the corners, maybe in the background of your favorite TV shows or your favorite movies, but we've always been here. And hopefully with this book, with this history, it will, tease you into diving deeper into the ways that we have, shown up and gifted culture so much.
You mentioned always being in the corners, being always around but not fully recognizing. Do you see representation changing, and how are you using some of these historical references to bring about that change or to put that change in the forefront of the reader's mind?
Absolutely. There are definitely so many changes that we've seen, so much progress that has happened, right, in Hollywood, particularly over the last decade. But I like to remind people that there's more room to go, right, more to be done. And I think when you look at the history of the ways that the community has been represented on screen, you begin to really see that perhaps we're not as far along as we think we are. And so the different shows, the different movies that I talk about in the film, some of your favorites, maybe it's a Psycho, maybe it's a Some Like It's Hot, right? Set the stage for where we are today, right? But we've got so much more to do.
And how did you go about choosing some of these very famous works to reference when you're talking about change and the history behind it? How did you choose them?
Yeah, I focused a lot on the movies, the shows that I know that we all understand to be like canonical because of the ways that it has shown the community over the years. But I also wanted to lean into the movies, the TV shows that were most important to me in my gender journey, in my formation, right? And talk about them in new ways. So I talk about everybody from Tyler Perry as Medea to, To Wong Fu, to RuPaul's Drag Race. We kind of run the gamut in terms of what you can find and see and read about in the book.
And how did you use some of your own journey to walk alongside some of these historical works or works that people know and bring those two worlds together, your world and some of the worlds that we see on screen?
Yeah, I think we always think that, it's just a movie, it's just a TV show, it's just entertainment, but we don't think often about the ways that what we see on screen influences, right, how we decide to move through the world in real life. And so I really wanted to make sure that I could show people and tell people that this TV show or this character or this movie had this type of impact on me, a human being and an individual, and how we should interrogate, right, the things that we see on screen and what they mean to us, how they lead us to believe a certain type of thing about how people are and how people move through the world, when that may not necessarily reflect the fullness, right, of their identity and how they move through the world.
And how are you seeing representation also behind the screen? We're seeing it on screen as well, but that's also a conversation that you address as well.
Absolutely. I think we are just getting in a moment this year in particular in which we're seeing especially Black trans people as directors, as writers, as producers. But historically we've known when you look at the Black community, when you look at Indigenous communities, when you look at Latinx communities, when you look at women in film, right, that they have had to go behind the scenes, behind the camera to ensure that what we see on screen, right, is diverse, is reflective of, the fullness and the complexities of our humanities. And I think that's been replicated, and we see that happening now with Black trans representation in particular. We're no longer just acting on screen. We're writing our own stories, we're directing our own stories, and we are really, standing in the center, centering ourselves, shouldering kind of that responsibility to diversify all that we see.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Hometown Living to share about your latest work. We want to make sure our viewers can get their hands on their own copy. Check out that website right there on your screen to get a copy of We See Each Other, a Black trans journey through TV and film. More Hometown Living when we come back. Stay with us.